"Don't open that envelope," the girl said, grabbing his arm. "Please, not here." Gordon Hale had been a corporate attorney for 31 years. He had sat across from CEOs during hostile takeovers, held the hands of grieving families through estate disputes, and once talked a federal judge out of a contempt citation on a Wednesday afternoon with nothing but a yellow legal pad and his own stubborn calm. He was not a man who startled easily. But the girl, she couldn't have been more than 9, maybe 10, was looking at him with eyes so steady and serious that he felt something shift in his chest. Not fear, exactly. Something older than fear. He looked down at the envelope in his hand. His name was written on the front in Carolyn's handwriting. His wife's handwriting. The same looping C. The same way she crossed the H with a little extra flourish. The same blue ink she always used because she thought black ink looked cold. They were standing in the parking lot of the Harborview Grill in Annapolis, Maryland, on a Thursday evening in late October, and the wind off the bay smelled like rain and diesel fuel, and Gordon had no idea who this child was. "What did you say?" he asked. The girl looked past him at the restaurant entrance, then back at him. "Please," she said again. "Not here. Someone will see." Gordon Hale had arrived at the Harborview Grill at 6:45 that evening for what Carolyn had described as a dinner to celebrate his partnership anniversary. 31 years. The firm, Hale, Burnett, and Cross, had started in a 2-room office above a dry cleaner on Duke of Gloucester Street and now occupied 2 full floors of the Chesapeake Commerce Building, with a satellite office in D.C. and a client roster that included 3 of Maryland's largest real estate developers and a pharmaceutical company that Gordon preferred not to think about too carefully after 9 p.m. Carolyn Hale had organized this dinner. That was what she'd told him 3 weeks ago, setting a reminder in his phone herself because she knew he'd forget. A small gathering. The partners, their spouses. Nothing elaborate, but when Gordon walked into the restaurant, the hostess told him his party hadn't arrived yet. He'd waited at the bar for 20 minutes, checking his phone. No messages. He'd tried Carolyn's number twice. Voicemail both times. He'd stepped outside to try again when he found the envelope wedged under the windshield wiper of his car, a white rectangle with his name on it, nothing else. And then, the girl had appeared from behind the SUV parked next to his, moving fast, reaching for his arm before he could slide his thumb under the flap. "Who are you?" Gordon asked now, in the parking lot, with the envelope still unopened in his hand. "My name is Blythe," she said. "My mom works here. In the kitchen." "Does your mother know you're out here?" "She doesn't know I heard what I heard," Blythe said. "That's different." Gordon studied her face. She had a small scar above her left eyebrow, the kind that comes from a childhood fall, and her jacket was too thin for the weather, and she was not a child who was playing a game. He had spent 31 years reading people across conference tables, and he knew sincerity when he saw it. He knew fear, too. "All right," he said slowly. "Tell me what you heard." Blythe looked around the parking lot one more time. Then she said, "The man in the gray car called someone. I was sitting on the steps by the service door. I do homework there sometimes when Mom's on a long shift. He didn't see me," he said. She stopped, swallowed, started again. "He said, 'Hale is coming tonight. We do it after dinner in the lot. Make sure it looks like a mugging.'" The wind came off the bay. Somewhere a car alarm chirped twice and went silent. Gordon did not move. "He said your name." Blythe said, "Hale," and then he said, "She confirmed it. He'll be alone when he comes out." She confirmed it. Gordon looked down at the envelope again. Carolyn's handwriting. Carolyn, who had set this dinner up. Carolyn, who had put in his phone herself. Carolyn, who had not answered either of his calls. He put the envelope in his jacket pocket without opening it. "Which car?" he said. "The gray one. Over there." She pointed without turning her head, the way a careful child points when she doesn't want to be seen pointing. "He went back inside about 5 minutes ago. He's wearing a dark blue jacket. He has a beard. How long ago did he make the call? Maybe 40 minutes? I came out to find you right away, but I didn't know which car was yours. I had to wait." Gordon looked at her, this small, serious girl who had waited 40 minutes in the cold to warn a stranger, and something moved through him that he didn't have a word for. Not quite grief, not quite gratitude. Something that sat between them like a third person. "Go inside," he said. "Go find your mom. Don't tell anyone you talk to me. Are you going to be okay?" He almost said yes out of reflex, the way adults always do. Then, he stopped himself. "I'm going to find out," he said. "That's the honest answer." She nodded, as though that was exactly what she expected from an honest person. Then she turned and walked back toward the service door. And Gordon stood in the parking lot of the Harborview Grill with an unopened envelope in his pocket and 31 years of a life he suddenly needed to look at very differently. He did not go back inside. He walked 2 blocks to a coffee shop on Main Street, sat at a corner table with his back to the wall, and ordered black coffee he didn't drink. Then he called his junior partner, Dennis Okafor, who answered on the second ring. "Are you at the restaurant?" Dennis asked. No, listen to me carefully. Is Carolyn there? A pause. She was. She left about 20 minutes ago. Said you called and weren't feeling well, that the dinner was being moved to next week. We all just. Another pause. Gordon, what's going on? Who else is at that restaurant right now? Me, Susan, the Burnetts, the Crosses. We were about to leave. Is there a man there you don't know? Dark blue jacket, beard, sitting alone? Gordon could hear Dennis shift, the sound of a chair moving, the ambient noise of the restaurant. There's a man at the bar, Dennis said quietly. I don't know him. Yeah, blue jacket. He's been there since before we arrived. Don't look at him again, Gordon said. Just listen. I need you to call the police non-emergency line and tell them there's a suspicious individual at the Harborview Grill who may be planning to commit a crime in the parking lot tonight. Don't use my name. Don't explain more than that. Can you do that for me right now? Dennis was quiet for only a moment. He was a good attorney. He knew how to move fast when the facts required it. Already walking to the hallway, he said. Give me 2 minutes. Gordon sat with the cold coffee and looked at the envelope on the table in front of him. He had taken it out of his pocket without realizing it. Carolyn's handwriting, 32 years married, 2 daughters, both grown. A house in Eastport with a porch that looked out over the water. A shared life that had the weight and texture of something real, something earned. She confirmed it. He'll be alone when he comes out. He opened the envelope. The letter. Inside was 1 page, handwritten in that same blue ink. Gordon, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry. I know that isn't enough. I've been trying to find a way to say this for 2 years, and there isn't one, so I'll just say it plainly. So want this life anymore. I hadn't want this life anymore. I haven't for a long time. I know what you'll think. I know you'll say we could have talked, we could have worked through it, and maybe you're right, but I couldn't. I couldn't sit across from you at our kitchen table and have that conversation. I've made arrangements with Stuart. He says it's cleaner this way. I know that sounds terrible. It is terrible. I'm sorry for that, too. Gordon read the letter twice. Then he set it down on the table very carefully, as though it were made of something that could shatter. Stuart. Stuart Gaines, his brother-in-law. Carolyn's younger brother, who had borrowed $40,000 from Gordon's firm 6 years ago and repaid only 12 of it. Stuart, who had spent the last decade in a series of failed business ventures and who had, Gordon now realized, been calling Carolyn every Sunday afternoon for the past year. Gordon had never thought anything of it. He had never had reason to. He says it's cleaner this way. Cleaner, the word, sat in his chest like a stone. He had built his entire professional life on language, on the precise meaning of words, on what they revealed and what they obscured. Cleaner was not a word you used about a divorce. It was a word you used about something you needed to go away. Dennis called back. Police are on their way, he said. Gordon, what is happening? I need you to pull Stuart Gaines's financial records, Gordon said. Whatever we can access through the firm. And I need you to find out if Carolyn has made any large withdrawals from our joint accounts in the last 6 months. I know it's late. I know this is. He stopped. Took a breath. I know what this sounds like, Dennis. It sounds like you need a lawyer, Dennis said. Lucky for you, you know one. Gordon spent the next 4 hours in his car in the parking lot of a grocery store 3 miles from the restaurant, working his phone. Dennis was at his home office pulling records. Gordon's older daughter, Priscilla, who lived in Philadelphia, called at 9 p.m. after Gordon texted her that he needed to hear her voice. She could tell something was wrong from the first word and didn't press him for details he wasn't ready to give. She just stayed on the line, talking about ordinary things. Her daughter's school play, a restaurant she'd tried last weekend. And Gordon listened and let the ordinary settle around him like something he could hold on to. At 10:15, Dennis called back. She moved $300,000, he said, and his voice was very controlled in the way that people's voices get when they are trying not to show you how alarmed they are. From the joint investment account, 6 weeks ago, into an account I can't trace yet, but it was opened in Delaware, and Stuart Gaines. A pause. Stuart Gaines has a prior record. Assault charge, 2009, Talbot County, pled down, and there's a man named Dex Collier who has worked for Stuart on at least 2 occasions as private security. Dex Collier was arrested in 2017 for armed robbery in Virginia Beach. Charges dropped on a technicality. Gordon sat in the dark parking lot. The grocery store had closed an hour ago. The parking lot lights were making the wet asphalt look orange. Gordon, Dennis said, you need to take this to the police tonight. Not the non-emergency line. I know. This is not a divorce matter. I know what it is, Gordon said. He knew exactly what it was. He had reviewed enough estate cases, enough insurance disputes, enough wrongful death suits to know the arithmetic of it without having to work it out. Carolyn was the beneficiary of a life insurance policy worth $1.8 million. He had taken it out when Priscilla was born, and he had never changed it because he had never imagined he would need to. $300,000 moved into a shell account. A man with a violent record stationed at the restaurant. An envelope designed to make sure Gordon came outside alone. He thought about Carolyn's handwriting, the looping C, the flourish on the H 32 years. He thought about the girl, Blythe, sitting on the steps by the service door in a jacket too thin for the weather, doing her homework while her mother worked the dinner shift and happening to be there, and choosing to wait 40 minutes in the cold to find him. He thought, God puts who he needs to put where he needs to put them. His father used to say that. Gordon hadn't thought of his father in months. He drove to the Anne Arundel County Police Department and told them everything. What happened next did not happen quickly, which is something no one tells you about the truth. The truth is slow. It has to be documented and verified and cross-referenced, and there are forms to fill out and statements to give and phone calls to make at 11 p.m. to attorneys who are also your friends and who sit across from you in a conference room with bad fluorescent lighting and do not say I told you so because they are good people. Dex Collier was still in the parking lot of the Harborview Grill when the police arrived. He was in the gray car. Gordon had not known which car was gray until the report came back, but Blythe had been right, exactly right, and he had on him a weapon, a prepaid phone, with a call log that included Stuart Gaines's number and $400 in cash that he could not account for. He was taken into custody that night. Stuart Gaines was arrested at his apartment in Severna Park 2 days later. He had tried to reach Carolyn between the time of Collier's arrest and his own. But Carolyn had already retained her own attorney and was not communicating with Stuart through any channel that could not be monitored. Carolyn herself cooperated with investigators beginning on the third day. Her attorney negotiated the terms. Gordon did not attend any of those meetings. He had his own attorney handle all communications from that point forward, which was the most painful professional courtesy he had ever extended, because it meant acknowledging that the woman he had been married to for 32 years was now, formally and legally, on the other side. The letter, I've made arrangements with Stuart. He says it's cleaner this way, was admitted as evidence. Gordon did not attend Stuart Gaines's trial. Priscilla asked him if he wanted to, and he said no. There was nothing in that courtroom he needed to see. He already knew the ending, and knowing it was enough. What he did not know in those first weeks was what to do with the mornings. He had lived in the Eastport house for 19 years, and the porch still looked out over the water, and the porch was still a good place to be at 6:30 in the morning with coffee, but it was a different thing now, that view. He sat with it anyway. He figured you had to sit with the different things until they became yours again, until they stopped belonging to whatever version of your life you'd thought you were living. 3 weeks after Dex Collier's arrest, Gordon drove back to the Harborview Grill on a Wednesday afternoon. Not for dinner. He asked the hostess if he could speak to whoever managed the kitchen staff, and she looked at him uncertainly and went to get the manager. And the manager came out wiping his hands on a side towel, and Gordon explained that he was looking for a woman who worked in the kitchen and had a daughter named Blythe. The manager's expression shifted. That would be Renata, he said. She's on tonight. I'd like to speak with her, if she's willing, when she has a moment. Renata came out 10 minutes later, a small woman in a kitchen apron, with the same steady eyes as her daughter and the same wariness in them. The wariness of someone who has learned that things showing up unexpectedly are usually not good news. Gordon introduced himself. He watched her face when he said his name, watched her understand. Blythe told me, Renata said carefully. After. She told me what she'd done. I didn't know whether to be angry with her or. She stopped. She saved my life, Gordon said. I want you to know that's not a figure of speech. Renata was quiet for a moment. Then she said, she worries about things. Other people's things, mostly. I'm always telling her it's not her job to carry everyone else's problems. This time, Gordon said, I'm glad she didn't listen. He had brought an envelope of his own. He set it on the hostess, Dan. This is for Blythe's education, whatever she wants to do with it. College, trade school, whatever she decides. There are no conditions attached. It's just what I was able to do. Renata looked at the envelope but didn't pick it up. She didn't do it for a reward. I know, Gordon said. That's exactly why. He saw Blythe once before he left. She came out from the kitchen in her thin jacket. She must have been done with school by then, waiting for her mother's shift to end, and she stood in the doorway and looked at him with those same serious eyes that had stopped him in the parking lot 3 weeks ago. You're okay, she said. I am, he said. She nodded, as though this was information she had been keeping track of, a variable she had been holding in her mind since the night she'd waited 40 minutes in the October cold to find a stranger whose name she'd overheard. Good, she said. And then she went back inside. Gordon stood in the doorway for a moment after she was gone, looking at the parking lot in the afternoon light, which was flat and gray and completely ordinary, cars going in and out. A woman loading grocery bags into her trunk. A man on his phone, not paying attention to anything. He thought, you never know which conversation is the one that matters. You never know which person is going to be the one standing there. He had spent 31 years in conference rooms trying to see around corners, trying to anticipate the thing that was coming before it arrived. He had been very good at it, and he had not seen this coming at all. Not the worst of it, and not the best of it either. Not Carolyn, not Stuart, and not a 9-year-old girl doing homework on the kitchen steps who had decided, without being asked, that a stranger's life was worth the price of an awkward conversation. He walked to his car. The bay was visible from the parking lot if you stood at the right angle, a thin silver line at the end of the street. He stood there for a moment and looked at it. Then he got in and drove home, to the house with the porch, to the view that was different now and would have to become his again one quiet morning at a time. He had work to do. He had always had work to do. That part, at least, had not changed.